being CEO is a little bit different than being the CFO. I always say you play a little bit more offense than defense. So I think the theme we try to use is locally committed but internationally connected. So I think you're fully right. We rely on local entrepreneurship, local competence of the market, of the customers, being closely knitted into the fabric of the society. We have a clear ambition to deliver CO2 free in all our last mile in Austria by 2030.
Welcome on our next episode on Banking on Success, the podcast of Raiffeisen Bank International, where we want to present to you inspiring leaders in Central Eastern Europe and giving an insight in their business and stories. I'm here sitting with Eliza Kavrakova,
Group Head Institutional Clients.
My name is Daniel Rath, and today I'm super excited to welcome Walter Oblin, CEO of Austrian Post AG. Welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Just to start off with, give you a little bit of an insight of your career. Most of the people listening to us know you for sure, but nevertheless, not everybody knows that you were born in Villach, and you also studied in my hometown in Graz, which is also not the I would say typical university we have, so Technical University of Graz you were doing. You also pursued your career in McKinsey as a starting point and have been up to a partner in McKinsey running the Austrian office, as well as I think that is now the path towards Post, doing the logistics part in globally for McKinsey, which I think paved your way into Austrian Post. After being the head of strategy, you have pursued the CFO role, and now for 6 months are in the CEO role. Welcome again, and probably the first to start with, how is the difference between a CFO and now a CEO? How has your role changed within the last weeks and months?
Yeah, so again, it's great to be here. I think there are many similarities between Raiffeisen and Austrian Post, strong heritage, strong presence in the country, but also international presence. Yeah, and indeed, being the CEO of Austrian Post has been a great experience so far. I think it's a real privilege to serve as the CEO of one of the largest Austrian companies, of a very exciting company. And coming to your question, I have been in the board for around 13 years now. So I know the company, of course, very well. But of course, being CEO is a little bit different than being the CFO. I always say you play a little bit more offense than defense as a CFO. You're probably the most important communicator of the company, although, of course, as a CFO, you also have various communication roles. And it has been exciting. I think we have a strong team of 20,000 employees in Austria, 30,000 international, and I really look forward to the next years.
Maybe to switch in the gears a bit, my first question would refer to, because Austrian Post usually is connected to, or for many people, they think it's just a mail delivery. But I know that it's much more than that. So what are the core services and the business segments of the company? I think this would be interesting for the audience to hear.
Yeah. So we report and operate in 3 business segments. Indeed, mail is the traditional business. Mail is our heritage, in some areas also our legacy. It's a shrinking business worldwide. But fortunately, we also have a growing business, which is our parcel and logistics business. This is the second one. In mail, we are only present in Austria, whereas in parcel and logistics, we operate an international network in a region, Austria, CE, Turkey, and also beyond Turkey. And the third segment is what we call retail and bank. This is back to Austria. This is our Austrian retail network consisting of postal branches and postal partners. And there, 5 years ago, we launched a new bank, Bank 99, and that is also part of this segment.
Yeah, I will come back to that a bit today later, because coming from my coverage segment, obviously the Bank 99 would be something to ask you about. But now connecting to what you've just said, and I was myself surprised preparing for the talk with you that you are, as you mentioned, also in CEE, the Turkey and even Azerbaijan. So what made you, or what were the thoughts behind this strategy to go into these markets? And why are they ideal for the strategy of the company, respectively what challenges do you face the further east you go?
Yeah. So I think the starting point is we are a listed company since 2006. We IPO'd in 2006. And I think already before that, I was not in the company then. I think it was clear only being present in Austria will not be an interesting equity story, will not be a strategy that, is an attractive story for all the stakeholders, employees, shareholders. And so the company had already made some footsteps into Eastern Europe, I think similar to Raiffeisen when the Iron Curtain opened up. I think this was a natural opportunity. And so today we are present in 8 Eastern European countries. And 2013, we stepped into Turkey with a 25% shareholding in the largest Turkish parcel operator. In the meantime, we own 80%. And so we now feel very comfortable with this region, Austria, Eastern Europe, Turkey, and Turkey we see as a bridgehead further east. It has gained in geopolitical importance over the last years. There are some interesting, all of them challenging markets around Turkey. Azerbaijan was one market where we made an expansion step last year, and we're currently making cautious first steps into Georgia and Uzbekistan. Yeah, and coming back to your question, why this region? So one region is historical. The other reason is Western European markets in our industry are well covered, well occupied, well divided up among the large international networks. In the markets we are present, we feel there is still a first move opportunity. We have a strong market position in most of these markets. We increasingly try to operate really as a regional player covering this region.
Which is another similarity, I guess, to us and our coverage.
True. Still, we have, you mentioned the similarities of Raiffeisen and us here. We have gone into markets closer to us. For us, Turkey is I would say, the farthest reach out. Azerbaijan also will look into the banking business. Nevertheless, we always used local expertise to get into those markets. How are you doing it? You mentioned now a few ones that you're newly looking into. Do you have local business partners there, joint ventures, or how is your approach also in running then such an organization? Because culturally, it's a completely different animal when you come, I don't know, Turkey as well as Austria, not a lot of similarities, I guess. Huh?
Yeah, of course. So I think the theme we try to use is locally committed but internationally connected. So I think you're fully right. We rely on local entrepreneurship, local competence of the market, of the customers, being closely knitted into the fabric of the society. The history of most of our regional companies is acquisitions, but not only acquisitions. For example, in Slovenia, we 3 years ago expanded organically, built up a new network. Azerbaijan has also been an organic step. So basically there we have followed customers. Some of the big Turkish e-commerce platforms, they themselves expanded east and they were looking for a partner to build up their delivery network. And so we're working there with a local partner. And so there are different ways. But I think in the way we operate, we always rely on local entrepreneurship, typically local management, sometimes with some combination of some Austrians that, have a role to share also some of the competencies we have in-house. Of course, there's always some, system of checks and balances, but this local element is very important. And I think the further you get from Austria, the more it's important to really have local entrepreneurship.
You mentioned Georgia already, other areas, further expansion. I mean, is the Austrian Post bound to a continent, or would it be, say, 5 to 10 years? There are other ways you explore. Western Europe, you said, is already conquered. But other than that, what would be on your map somehow?
Yeah, I think currently we don't have any global ambitions, to go to South America, Africa, whatever. I think this region is big enough for us. So we're talking currently already about 150 million inhabitants that we reach. So that's our value proposition to the large e-commerce platforms. We connect you with 150 million consumers with strong, high-quality delivery networks. But of course, there are some white spots still in this geography. So if you talk about Southeastern Europe, for example, we are not present in Romania. We're not present in Greece, in Northern Macedonia. So that is, of course, one area where we always have our eyes open, whether there are opportunities. And then this regional, we already discussed east, or let's say around Turkey. I think that is another region. Yeah, and with that, I think given the size we have and given also the war chest we have, I think that's good enough. Yeah.
And because you've mentioned that the kind of the Western part or the Western markets are saturated and the competition from the global logistic giants is there. Now, I guess in the East there is also competition. So how do you succeed to keep the competitive edge? So what's the key point here to stay competitive in a very dynamic environment?
Yep.
Because all the countries you've mentioned in the East are also looked at from many sides, and there are many companies entering. Also, particularly in the last 3 years, a lot of flows, trade, for example, change. So Central Asia and Caucasus are markets where many look at. So how do you succeed to keep the competitive edge?
Yeah, I think you're right, completely right. We are acting in a very dynamic industry. Starting with the customer side, we basically work with the big tech companies, with the big e-commerce platforms of this world. There is a lot of change going on there as well. Over the last 2 years, we saw a strong, aggressive expansion of Chinese e-commerce platforms to Western Europe and also the US. So companies like Temu, Shein, Alibaba, we're working with all of them. And at the same time, there's also a very strong and dynamic competition, maybe less so in mail. There we have a very aggressive digital competition. But in parcel delivery, there is a strong and also dynamic competition in all of these markets, including Austria. Some established players like the local postal companies, also in Eastern Europe and Turkey. Then you have the international networks, the DHLs, the DPDs, the GLS. But then you have new players like InPost, a company that also revolutionized a little bit parcel delivery by mostly relying on lockers. We have companies like Paqueta in Eastern Europe who are also trying to aggressively expand. And so what's our, how do we try to stay ahead? I think we believe in market leadership. We believe in scale as key elements in our industry. In the end, you have fixed cost networks, and the better you can utilize them, the better is your cost structure. I think the second theme we believe in is innovation and quality. So we go every day into work and try to think about where can we be even more innovative, even faster, even more efficient, to really have a compelling value proposition for our customers. Just to give you some examples, our large e-commerce customers, basically, they want you, if you tonight after dinner, hopefully rest on your couch and still make some online purchases, they want you to receive those things tomorrow. Yeah, and in between you ordering something on your couch at, let's say, 9 p.m. and a postman starting his work at 6 p.m. and maybe going out at 7:30 a.m. to deliver on his route, there is a value chain where the order needs to be fulfilled in a local fulfillment center that is typically somewhere Warsaw, Prague, somewhere in Eastern Europe, South Germany, a transport into one of our logistics centers. There's some sorting and then some transport to the local delivery depot. And in order to enable that, for example, we allow our customers to inject the volumes until 4 a.m. in the morning, which leaves us around 2 hours to sort and to reach the delivery depot. And I hope this example already, illustrates a little bit
it's amazing.
How demanding it is. And speed is one thing. Efficiency, of course, it's a cost game. Every cent is important. It's a very competitive market.
Another similarity, I think, the postal service, as far as I also was reading up front, is a very traditional old one. I think 15th century Emperor Maximilian I establishing first postal services. Then the stamp came in place 1850, if I have it correctly. Now you talk about innovation, 2 hours of doing things. Innovation in an organization that is super traditional, as banks are as well. How do you daily try to get it into the culture, into the people, into your normal day of business, course of business in your organization? Is there a routine you have as a management team? Is it something you give as a headline from the top constantly? Austrian Post has some tradition. Now I think innovation is key. How did you transform the company here?
Yeah, so I think first, we haven't started yesterday. I think there is now probably a period of around 15, 20 years of transformation of Austrian Post, from a very state-owned, state-driven,
state-minded,
not even a company. 30 years ago, it was part of the corporate of the government administration. And over the last, I would say, 15, 20 years, there was really a very substantial transformation covering all aspects of the company, from the staff structure. We still have some civil servants, but we, in the same, depot, 2 people are doing the same job under very different conditions, contract conditions. One is civil servant, the other a new collective wage agreement paid on a market level. And what I think what's important is that you constantly communicate the need for transformation, but also the targets and the vision where you want to get. And I think for those who are in our industry, who are walking through the day with open eyes, it's quite clear that things are changing fundamentally. Every postman sees less and less letters in his daily delivery route. At the same time, they also see, parcel is the future. But of course, that requires a massive transformation. And just the news of the last weeks in our industry, maybe you've heard it, Danish Post communicated that they will stop delivering mail by the end of the year. They already canceled, the government canceled the USO obligation, so the universal service obligation for Danish Post last year. And the Danish market has always been, very advanced in digitization, in declining of mail volumes. But also another example, Royal Mail, so, really an icon of the corporate landscape in the UK, is being taken over by a Czech billionaire. So I think some of these examples help, and I use them to articulate the need for change in the company. And of course, I'm not alone. I think it's the whole management team. I think that is committed to this transformation, sees the need for transformation. But of course, it's a constant change process, and it has become part of our DNA, I would say.
So one remark and a question means at a certain point of time, I need to stop sending Christmas cards handwritten. I understand. This will not be... No? Okay.
You're not in Denmark.
No, therefore I'm saying, speaking about Austria, I still can send them because
you can bring them personally.
Exactly. Yeah. And this means that also establishing a fintech mindset in a traditional company is possible.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, if that were not possible, I think also large companies with a lot of traditions, such as Raiffeisen, would not exist and have a future. But I think we both know it's not a given. Yeah, you have to work every day. But just to clarify, the Danish have decided not to deliver mail anymore after the end of this year. In Austria, we are highly committed to a high quality mail service. Yeah. We still have around 500 million addressed letters in Austria. That is declining with a rate of 6 to 7%. But I can guarantee you there will be Christmas cards delivered. There will be bank accounts delivered. We still have a part of the population. We understand everybody's trying to reach consumers digital. Also, we are doing that. But there is a part of the population. talked to the CEO of Swiss Post. They just did a market survey and in Switzerland, and around 15 to 20%, even in a rich, well-educated, digitally advanced company like Switzerland, are use the term digitally challenged. Yeah, so we're talking about elderly people, but we're also talking about, we're sometimes talking about migrants. We're talking about certain elements of the population that are digitally challenged, and in some areas we're also, I would say, the enabler for companies like yourself for the digital transformation you have embarked on. Because if there weren't some provider of physical mail, it would be hard, because you will not be able to reach everybody digital. Yeah, but of course we are also ourselves.
But this will change one day. The Generation Z is challenging us anyhow. So one day, yeah. Thanks for the Christmas cards.
At least these days, huh?
Yes.
You mentioned already large transformations. A huge transformation you did already or are in the brink of is sustainability ESG. I read you are above 5,000 electric vehicles already in your fleet. How is the sustainability strategy of Austrian Post continuing, or is this already at the maximum level as you communicate? How important is the topic to you?
Yeah, first of all, we're in interesting times, talking about sustainability. I think 6 months ago, it was a given that this is a priority for all of us across at least the Western world. This is not the case anymore. Still, we believe we're doing the right thing, and we are sticking to a strategy of being a leader in sustainability in our industry. We started 15 years ago in the meantime, or 14 years ago, 2011. We started with a more comprehensive sustainability program. We started then with our first electric vehicles in the delivery last mile. We started with our first PV, with our first PV generation on our roofs. We have a clear ambition to deliver CO2 free in all our last mile in Austria by 2030. What does that mean? We have 10,000 vehicles. Historically, of course, they were all combustion engine driven. We stopped procuring combustion engine cars around 3 years ago now, I think. And in the meantime, we have more than 50% of our fleet is electrified, with very good daily results, with very good, this is now proven. In the first days, there was a little bit the question in winter from the Alpine regions, should we heat today or should we deliver mail? Because the size of the battery and the reach was still an issue. I think this has been overcome. Most of our postmen are happy with their electric car. It doesn't produce emissions which are also not healthy, which don't smell. It's easier to drive. And for our application, a defined route every day coming back to the depot where you have a charging station, this is ideal. Yeah, and so we have a clear target to eliminate the last delivery van. We're not talking about the trucks between our logistics centers. There, I think there's more work to do, but on the last mile, we feel confident that this is a realistic target.
Apart from this target, what you've just mentioned, are there any other KPIs you have to measure the effectiveness of the sustainability strategy of the company?
Yeah, I think primarily we're talking about KPIs, like CO2 footprint, and we've come substantially down over the last 2-3 years, despite growing parcel volume. I've mentioned PV. We are one of the largest non-utility companies in terms of PV installations. So we have, in the meantime, around 18 megawatt peak on our roofs, which means that we produce around 20% of our electricity ourselves, renewable energy on our own roofs. So share of green energy, the rest we also procure green electricity. But at the same time, it's we are doing it because it's we feel a responsibility. We're doing it because it's economically in the meantime, but we're also doing it because there is consumer and B2B customer demand and preference for that. Yeah. And we hope that will continue to be so. But as I said, we're living in interesting times.
Very much true. So I'll make now a side jump because I promised at the beginning that I'll come back to the Bank 99.
Yeah.
What were the thoughts behind this diversification to create the Bank 99, and how was it perceived in the market?
Yeah. So it's clear, talking from bank to post, that we need to talk about our bank. So what were the reasons for why we launched a new bank in a well satisfied, or some say even overbanked Austrian banking market? So we're not the first post who has financial services in the offering, and it's also not the first time. We have for decades been offering financial services in our retail network as a partner of a large Austrian bank. And when this cooperation ended, we were evaluating different options. We also looked around, and again, I'm just coming from a postal CEO meeting, and actually the theme of a postal bank is a very positive one these days in our industry, because there are a number of postal companies who have very successfully developed their financial services business. For example, if you go to Italy, be it a small island like Capri or a big city like Milan, you will see that Poste Italiane, in fact, is a very successful financial services company with Banco Poste, also with an insurance offering. So basically, they see themselves as a distribution channel for various products, from post to telecom to financial services, and they are very successful. If you go to Switzerland, you will see PostFinance, a very successful Swiss bank. If you go to Lisbon, Portugal, CTT, the Portuguese postal operator, has successfully over the last 10 years developed a bank. What's the general idea behind it? You have a postal ecosystem consisting of a brand with a lot of trust, typically. You have a retail network that is there more or less anyway, that you can access at marginal cost. You have non-customer frequency in your branches, which is something most banks would love to have. We in our postal network, we have in Austria, we're around 67 million consumer contacts, and each of those is an opportunity to gain a new customer or maybe offer an interesting savings product. And so that's the idea. There is an ecosystem that is a good platform for a very focused retail bank. It's very small. I think you probably haven't even noticed it in the market. But over the last 5 years, we've come some way. We have now 300,000 customers. We have 4 billion balance sheet, and I think we're still scratching on the surface.
But would it be also an option, or was it never discussed? You have Austria, the synergies there, other countries to do the same, or is banking focused on Austria standalone until further notice?
Yeah, no, that's clearly focused on Austria, and I think this platform, this postal platform, with a very strong, as I mentioned, brand, retail network, that is not as strongly developed in other countries. There we have a parcel pure play, sometimes without an own retail network, with a brand that is much more narrowly positioned. So I think that's an Austrian thing.
That's good enough. Let me come probably to a topic we lightly touched already. Ownership structure of Austrian Post. You said stock listed meanwhile for quite a long time. Congratulations also to the stock price development within the last weeks and months. This has been very favorable. Still, you are state-owned. So how do you also cope with the different ownership stakeholders you have as an organization, as well as you as CEO with different ownership structures? Is there a cultural difference how you work as a stock-listed, very transparent company, as well as coming from the heritage, as we said before, being integrated even into a government?
Yeah. First of all, yes, you're right. We have been IPO'd, I think, 19 years ago, and I think it was and Raiffeisen was very instrumental in the I process, and also over the last 19 years has been a very important partner in working with the capital markets, and thank you for that. Just to add to what you've said, please don't look only at the share price. We are a dividend stock, so our value proposition is to be a defensive dividend stock. I think we've well delivered against that value proposition over the last 19 years. We've paid an attractive dividend throughout all those years, even in crisis years. So we paid a dividend in the financial crisis in 2009, 2010, and also in the multi-crisis environment of the last years, the pandemic, Ukraine crisis, was all what happened in the aftermath. We have stick to this dividend, and behind that have shown that we have a robust business model. We can generate revenues even during a pandemic. So that will be also our capital market position. Coming to the ownership structure, I think we are very happy with our setup. I think it has been absolutely essential that we are a listed company, that we have this metric every quarter of delivering results, of being focused to customer value, to focus to be a sustainable and stable and attractive employer, but also to deliver returns for our shareholders. And that aligns us well in the company. At the same time, we are happy that we have this core shareholder. There is also some consolidation happening in our industry. Not very much happening on the postal side, but I talked about Mr. Kretinsky taking over Royal Mail. And I think this the ÖPAG, the government holding, which acts with a very professional corporate governance, we are very happy to have them as a core shareholder. And in the end, we are still also a regulated business, so I think it also helps if the government is both at least a partial owner of the company and has some ambitions and intentions and objectives with the company or with the market that go beyond just being an owner. And so we are very happy with that ownership structure. I think coming to the last part of your question, how does that impact the way we operate? I would say not at all. I think I would even say there is no alternative to acting like a private, customer-focused, innovative company. We talked about our market and the dynamics in it. And I also can say with conviction, there is no political influence within Austrian Post. We have a fully, depoliticized and politicized in German management team for years now. And I hope this will continue to be so. Yeah, and as long as I'm there, it will be like that. Yeah.
And speaking, because you've mentioned delivering results, what in your view are the areas of operation within the Austrian Post, which in your view have the biggest potential for growth and innovation?
Yeah, our growth opportunity, our growth engine is the parcel business. And there we're basically talking about the e-commerce market, international e-commerce market. That is a mega trend that has transformed how people shop over the last 15 years probably. And according to all experts, and if you look to more mature markets like the US, like UK, we still have some catch-up potential, and those markets are still probably somewhere half in the development of e-commerce. Yeah. And that is clearly one of the areas we invest in Austria, internationally, where we try to, as I mentioned already, to be an innovative, customer-focused company. And in Austria, and we also talked about that, we see opportunities beyond Post. We talked about financial services. There are some other services. For example, we're working with A1 in the telecom industry, in our branch networks. In some areas, postal companies have taken over government services. So in very, if for example, in Italy or in Ireland, you can, apply for a driver's license in post offices. So I think that is, of course, that requires a government and municipalities to look for partnering. But we have some small initiatives in this area. So there are many opportunities.
Thank you.
We've covered a lot on Austrian Post. We have not so much touched you as a person. I know from trying to get also this meeting done, you have a full schedule. You're working 24/7. We hear and see now in your dedication, work is very important to you. Still, there are other areas where I guess it's important to you as well. Where do you recharge? How do you get your energy again? Work-life balance, things like this. How do you manage to do a week that you have in your calendar and then recharge batteries again?
Yeah. So I think you're right. It's a 24/7 job in the sense that, your mind is busy with, hopefully not always and not 100%, but there are some professional thoughts in your mind probably 24/7. At the same time, I try to, for example, to keep weekends quite reserved for my private life. Does not mean that, you're not thinking about things, but I try to have some free time. And yeah, I think, I tend not to talk about work-life balance because, in our roles, I think work is part of your life. And if you don't appreciate that, I think then you're in the wrong job. And I think it's a real privilege and it's very exciting to be in this role. But I think it's important to recharge, to also stay healthy. And so I like to be outdoors in my free time. I think we had some joint mountaineering experience with skis a few weeks ago. So being in the mountains in winter, but also in summer. I have a road bike, which I use a lot in summer. And then also sometimes, going to the Musikverein in Vienna is also a nice experience and inspires you sometimes.
And how do you send your Christmas wishes?
I write a lot of business cards, of Christmas
I
cards.
needed to ask this question.
This was obvious that you will ask this one.
Personally, and not talking as post CEO, I find these email Christmas wishes. I think you better save them for yourself. I think it's very anonymous and sending with a large distribution list, and so I think a personally written Christmas cards, ideally not only with a signature but with one or two sentences, I think is a nice way to get in touch with friends, family, but also business partners. So I write probably 200-300 professional business cards, and I have a tradition also for the last 10 years to produce a private family Christmas card with some pictures what has happened over the last year. This is also a nice family project with my 3 adult children. So that's my Christmas card tradition.
Thanks for that 9 months before Christmas.
Exactly. And the two of you are saving the tradition, I hear at least.
I hope you too.
I will try my best, I think. A new project for the next 9 months. Thank you very much, Walter Oblin, for joining us today. It was super interesting and inspiring and giving us an insight and overview on your company and your personal life. Many thanks.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
Dear audience, many thanks for tuning in. I'm happy to see you in our next podcast, Banking on Success, which will become soon online. Thank you very much for listening. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Raiffeisen Bank International. Make it happen.